Swallow in Cumbria. So here at Skipton, like most northern markets, prime stock, breeding sheep, store cattle, all that mixed together with pedigree stock. But we're just getting round to the meat of the season now. We have had our shearing sale. We'll touch on that a little bit later as we're talking about breeding sheep prices, and we'll try and update you on where we are with the lamb prices at the moment as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ted. You might have just heard I've just started to record the meeting. So if anybody doesn't want to be seen, just do keep your camera on blacked out. That's no problem. Paul, can we come to you at Penrith?
Yeah, I'm Paul, one of the auctioneers at Penrith District Farmers Mart. Probably mirroring what Ted says. We sell vast amounts of array of stock, and we just have our weekly sales of prime stock. We'll discuss the price of that shortly. We're getting into a busier time now going forward. And we're looking forward into our breeding sheep sales. We kind of have our main ones starting in a couple of weeks' time, and it's looking busy for entries as well. So we'll try and touch on that. And just off the back of the machinery sale, we're busy with that. So hopefully we can give everyone an insight next hour of how things are looking and what's going to happen in the next few weeks for our busy time.
That's great, Paul. Thank you. Jack, can we come to you over at Hexham?
Yeah, hello, I'm Jack Walton. We run 3 markets here at Hexham. We've got Hexham Mart, we've got Scott's Gap Mart, and we've now taken over St John's Chapel. So it keeps us nice and busy this time of year, especially. We're just starting to get into our breeding sheep sales. We start our first sale a week today, our first breeding sheep sale. Exciting times ahead, hopefully. Hopefully some of these rules regarding blue tongue and stuff are going to change, which will hopefully have a good effect onto our industry.
Brilliant. Well done, Jack. We'll come back to that. So obviously we're getting to that time of year when we up the ante in terms of the back end. All the breeding sheep sales are starting now. So let's concentrate on that if we can for a start, guys, talking about the breeding sheep sales. We in Cumbria and the Dales tend to kick in with the lowland sheep in around August time, and then we start to get into obviously the mule gimmer lamb sales and the hill sales as time progresses. What are we hearing from the south in terms of the early sheep fairs that take place from end of July through August across the country? What's the feedback been from the southern sales so far?
I didn't actually go to term this year because I was on other jobs, but what I've heard is that good sheep as normal. You can always find a buyer for the best sheep. They've been a fair trade, but the commercial sheep certainly are taking a little bit of harm from, you assume, from the dry weather, because sheep lamb prices, cull ewe prices, everything like that would point to actually breeding sheep being dearer. So it's probably one of those years where people are going to look to buy things a little bit later. They might avoid going to the first round of sales and turn up at the second and third round of sales to buy what they need from a point of view of keep. Our sale, we've already been at Skipton, third week of August with the yearlings, the shearlings. We were obviously hurt by the blue tongue a bit because there's people in North Wales trip up into Yorkshire to buy the yearlings, the shearlings, and we missed out on a couple of guys there who come and buy 300, 400, 500 a piece. So just being that 2 or 3 weeks later than the southern sales, though, it probably helped our averages. And a little bit more grass in this region that we were dearer than the south, which I'm sure Paul will find as well in a week or two's time as well with the northwestern stuff, that on a local basis we're a damn sight better off than they are in the south. But certainly drought does seem to be having an adverse effect so far on a southern producer's ability to buy his replacements.
Yeah, I would say what Ted said, like Adam, you obviously showed us a video just before. We probably up here don't appreciate and realise how bad it is down south, and we just need some rain really, and that will probably just liven everything up trade-wise.
I think I was down delivering a different type of. I was delivering some horses down to Newbury 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't believe how little grass there is when you get down there. We think we're bad up here at the moment, and I think the further west you get is definitely greener than over on the east potentially. But the further south you get is atrocious. My mum and dad live down in Worcestershire, and the pictures I'm getting sent of the fields down there, it's shocking. It really is. And I can understand why the better end of breeding stock have probably been a good trade so far. People are probably looking to buy that better end if they can, instead of keeping having to buy the next stage down and just letting them run through. If they've got no grass, you may as well buy something that's decent to go onto that than buying something that's a bit second rate.
Yeah, I just hadn't appreciated how bad the keep situation was in the south until yesterday when I was in a meeting with the RPA and some of the farming charities and one or two others, and just realised. Oh, hello. Whoever that is, would you mind muting? Thank you. Yeah, I hadn't realised how bad it was. The Addington Fund have actually launched a drought appeal last week because the keep situation is so bad. And so I rang one of my mates who's farming in Warwickshire, farms beef and sheep in a big way, and comes up to the north to buy several hundred or over 1,000 gimmer lambs every year. And he actually sent me a video, and I'm going to share this. He gave me permission to share it, so I'm going to share it with you now. It's just a very quick one. But just never mind, we'll just ignore Jack there. Just where's it gone? I've lost it for a second. Forgive me, I am sharing my screen. Let's see if this will go. There it is.
And this scene is all across the south central belt of England, touching into Cheshire, and then really anywhere east of the Pennines. I think anybody on here who's on an eastern facing dale, sort of east of Hexham, anybody bottom end of Weardale that I speak to and such like, anybody eastern facing dale is facing the same. It is only this little corner of my area, North Yorkshire, what we call the Craven district, so west of Skipton, out towards Lancashire, if we can say that word, across into Lancashire and up into Cumbria. That is the only area really of England that, apart from North Devon for some reason seems to be as well, but the rest of England is replicating what Adam's just shown you, really.
I commentate quite a lot of shows across the country, and I was down at a show in Northampton 2 or 3 weeks ago where I spoke to a feed merchant who said they're on full winter rations. Every farm around there is on full winter rations, and that's the middle of the summer.
Big cost going to be involved in it, Jack.
Massive, and everyone's forage crops are non-existent. Even up here, I was speaking to a cattle and sheep farmer in Weardale. Not a massive one, but he's 900 bales of silage down this year. But that's a massive cost to go and buy 900 extra bales of silage, or does he go and sell his stock now? And that's the predicament he's in.
Yeah, that particular farm that I showed you that video from there, his second cut of haylage, he averaged 1 bale per acre, round bale per acre. So don't in any way want to be defeatist about this. We have been in these situations before, though everybody in the south are saying they've never had it as bad. But what are we thinking about trade then? And what can we do to mitigate some of the issues which some of our buyers might have? Is there anything we can do? What are your thoughts, guys?
It's going to be a cost element for some of it. You look at the blue tongue regulations to be able to get stuff into Wales where they're saying they want stuff to be vaccinated or whatever. So it's whether customers of vendors of star lambs want to vaccinate the type of lamb that might usually get sold to Wales. There's a lot of things, a lot of issues, isn't there? Really, you can't or you shouldn't really blanket vaccinate everything, because if it's generally sold to England, I would probably say that a lot of star lamb customers aren't bothered about buying blue tongue vaccinated star lambs. But to open your gates to be able to sell them either side the border, depending where you're at and the type of lamb you're selling, you might be forced into doing that. as the season progresses.
The new Scottish rules on the 21st of September seems to be that as long as it's not pregnant and not a shearling tub, they can move freely up into Scotland. But
they're only advising, aren't they, for Scotland? They're advising for Scotland. If you look at Wales, the way I read it, looks to be as if they want everything to be blue tongue vaccinated to go to Wales.
Yeah. I think, but it sadly sums up the farce that it's been for the last 2 months. That they can suddenly pick a date out of midair, which happens to be after the Council Ram sales, and decide that that's the date that they can pick to let you move stock into a different country. It's completely farcical, but sadly, they're the rules we've got to go by. We've got a lot of customers being closer to the border in Scotland who come and buy store lambs that would normally have bought quite a number of store lambs by now. Who some of them have been to other markets, which has a knock-on effect on our business and our farmers in our area. But some of them have been waiting for these rules to change. And there has been more grass up into Scotland than there is around here. So it's a shame that we haven't been able to utilise those buyers yet. But hopefully after the 21st, and hopefully when it comes to some more of the Gimmer lamb sales later on in the season, hopefully it'll have a good effect. We've got one customer that comes to our Towlaw Gimmer lamb sale from Scotland who buys a good number, who was wanting me to find them on farms, but now realises that the dates after the sale, after the date of movement into Scotland's before our Towlaw sale. So hopefully it will help our sale now because he can come to the sale. But it's totally farcical.
We've obviously got a sales coming up as well before the 21st. Our main mule shearing sale and breeding sheep sale is on the 9th of September. And that's, we give or take 2 weeks before the date opens up. We have quite a lot of Scottish buyers who come every year to buy stock and buy with the same people. And so fortunately for us, we've managed to find like a farm and some keep, and we've offered that to a lot of our buyers, and we've advertised that we can offer keep to try and help Scottish buyers or prospective Scottish buyers at buying stock, and then they can move them back after the 21st, basically. But I suppose it comes with a risk, but I think most of the people are really pleased we've done that. And it's surprising how many Scottish clientele we have that want to buy English stock rather than buying Scotch bred stock.
Yeah, that's a good point, Paul, and that's well made. Does anybody in the meeting have any questions about blue tongue? I see one's just come in on the chat. What's it saying? For some reason, I seem to have gone to a different chat, not related to mine. So there we go. The question is, what drove the decision for Scotland Wales to take this BT view? I don't know if we've got anybody from the Scottish government or the Welsh government to answer that question. Obviously, they're devolved governments in their own right. So I'm not sure if anybody on this call can answer that question.
I think it's been pressure.
Go on, Jack.
I'll tell you, I think a lot of it been pressure from farmers on the borders, especially in the Welsh borders. There's a lot more markets who are actually literally on the border of either side, and it's been affecting them horrifically, and the farmers and trade. And I think realistically, the thing, there's been hardly any cases of blue tongue. 0.00001% of sheep have been affected in England from it. I think they realised actually it was a lot of fuss very quickly over something that actually hasn't had a massive effect on our industry, but it has had an effect on the farmer's pocket.
We were getting a lot of people come to us to ask questions. Should they vaccinate sheep? Shouldn't they vaccinate them? And it is a very, very tough question because at the time we weren't sure. And we said to a lot of shearing guys, said, well, if you want to sell them, I said, we'll maybe advise you to do them. We don't definitely know people are going to want them done, but now the way it's looked, maybe it's going to work in some sort of favour in the fact that Wales want them vaccinated to accept them. So it possibly is going to help with that. But the Scottish side, it isn't going to make a difference. But we felt like at the time it was maybe the right thing to do, because if it comes that Scotland was only allowed vaccinated stock, well, you'd have another problem understanding that. So that's how we felt.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, we've given the blue tongue and herring. We've got a lot to get through. Just going back to the keep situation and the drought situation, are you guys getting many calls yet, or is it too early from some of our southern buyers asking about potential keep up here, or keep for their purchased lambs to go back to? Any comments on that?
Yeah, it is. It is beginning to come in as people are looking at being, within 2 weeks of the northern sales now. Obviously, Hexham have a sale first, then Skipton if they move into the Dales and further north. But they are starting to think about it and think about what they're going to do with them. It's a little bit difficult here because I'm sure east of Hexham, probably the same problem. You won't have any grass up there, Jack, where you haven't got the availability of grass really. In Craven district here, sort of west of Skipton, we have been reasonably okay because we kept getting the Atlantic weather just dropping into here west of the Pennines. But certainly since the start of August, things are beginning to drought around here. They're getting to be a shortage of grass. Local people at Skipton looking for keep for their own use already for a few months this winter. So we're going to struggle to find availability in a dairy sector where they like to keep control of the grass and such like you might have usually found them. Several of those guys, if they're in Cheshire or below, South Lancashire, they're already using buffer stocks of silage and looking at taking more crops into September and October. So we might find it a little bit difficult to source some grass.
There's definitely a few of our farmers who sell ewe lambs at the first sale who are willing to take them home for a couple of weeks, especially for some. I know we keep talking about blue tongue, but especially for some of those clients as well, they are happy to take them back for a couple of weeks for the rules. But I think it is the usual suspects that ring wanting them to be for a couple of weeks to try and make lorries fit and things like that from different sales. They're going to be told that sadly, yeah, we can do it, but it's very little for them to eat. It's up to them. It's going to be at their own risk. We can show them videos and pictures of what grass they're going to be eating, and if that's what they want to do, they can do. On the east side, I know on the west side there is a little bit more grass, and Paul's in a lucky position there that they've managed to find somewhere they can put some sheep onto some keep. But at the moment on our side, we've got more farmers probably asking for keep than we have buyers at the moment, and they're just farmers to produce their own stock.
Yeah. Any more questions from anybody about the breeding sheep sales this year? Anybody want to raise anything? It's all quiet, guys. You've stunned everybody into silence.
It's kind of interesting as you do the local shows. Just a bit of an anecdote for you. And we look at shearing averages so far over the years, and I just noted them down here. Just 2 years ago, 2023, mule shearings were 163 quid. Then they were 202, and this year they were 226. When you put that against LAA market prices for the week in August, same week, cull yow price on LAA market price is £86.28 in 2 years ago, £100.50 last year, £112.10 this year. So there's obviously some correlation there as you're seeing cull yow prices going up. But going back to the Gimmer lamb prices, £152 at the first sale at Skipton last year. We do a sweepstake around the 3 local shows just to get a bit of a feeling as to what local vendors and especially what local purchasers are thinking, and most folk are expecting ewe lamb prices to probably be averaging 10 or 20 quid more. I hope they haven't been on Facebook and seen Wallet Smart's average from Monday. Have those ideas in their minds, otherwise we're all stuffed. So, but that's, as we said before, that's the border and the blue tongue and the Scottish buyers forced to buy in Scotland. So that's put probably increased pressure on Dumfriesshire and mid-Scottish farmers to buy stock now at increased prices. So, but there is, even though there's drought such as that, your serious, your main producers, your large producers of sheep, they're still going to buy the replacements. And it's funny, you farmers, you're resilient bloody bunch. You find a way around it, and I'm fairly sure that they'll still be there for ewe lambs in this next month.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And that particular farm that I showed you down in Warwickshire there, although things are desperate there and they are spending a hell of a lot of money on livestock feed at the minute, and there's no straw and they've next to no crop at this moment in time, you'll be pleased to know Paul is absolutely intent on coming to buy. So there will be a
Yeah.
way. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is demand. The sheep trade is fairly strong at the minute in terms of fat. And
I'd like to
there is
kind of, oh, sorry,
go for
I'd like to
go
kind of
go.
echo what Ted said, just in the fact that he's obviously looked back at the owl prices and things, but until probably about 2 weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, the owl price would be considerably more up on the previous year, and probably like unseen levels of the owl price that you've seen probably in the last 8 months. It's been steady, it's been very, very strong, and hopefully people that have sold past the owls or sold Spain and sold earlier should be feeling relatively flush and willing to buy good stock again because they've had so much more for their house.
I
Yeah,
think
that's it.
with the drought as well, farmers have sold ewes quicker because the fact that there isn't the grass there, so they may as well get rid of them, get the mouths off the grass, and actually hopefully they've got a bit more money in their pockets as well because they have actually sold them quicker because they've been forced to.
Yeah, which would be right, because if you go on AHDB website and you look at their slaughterings to the end of July 25, we're at 6.3 million lambs killed to the end of July in 2024. We're just shy of 6.5 million now. And I would say that when you get to end of August, because we've all been busier during August in prime sheep markets, I would say that gap of a number of sheep killed increases at the end of August. I would think, we're moving in front of stuff. So it's good.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point.
You only have to go if you go on Facebook, follow a firm called Forbes in Australia on Facebook, and it's interesting to have seen this last month what they've been making of the fat sheep in Australia, what the commentary they're saying about store cattle and beef prices in Australia. This week's come out about the census in Texas. They do a census of forward cattle in Texas. And at the start of August this year, there are 2.4 million cattle on this census. You look back to the same figure in 2024 at the same time, 2.7 million cattle. So you've 12% less cattle in the big feedlot of Texas. Everywhere you go around the world, they're just talking about livestock prices, meat prices, everything. I think that's good for us in the Northern Hemisphere, But it's interesting just to follow what's happening in other parts of the world and just get a feel for it. But certainly in Australia, there's a move on going upwards.
And this is a really interesting point that some of us are making in government forums that we sit in and stakeholder meetings and partnerships. And whilst whilst we focus a lot on nature and net zero and the schemes, because that's the only support payments we're going to get, we're constantly trying to find that balance and make people understand that in a rising population globally and the issues that climate change, which is very real, is causing, it actually means the demand for livestock, for red meat and milk, is growing, and we have to find that right balance. That's not for the discussion today. We'll do another one on that for another members' hour, but I can see Adrian laughing in the background there. But look, it's something we've got to keep focusing on. It's about getting that right balance. And as our livestock numbers are reducing, which they appear to be, and certainly in beef and sheep, got to have an effect. And for those that are left in the job, it has to be positive over the next few years. It's just what we do to get there. So anyway, let's take it year by year, shall we? There is demand for this stock. We've heard of the challenges of that. What do you forecast for the prime sheep trade? What's the trade telling you guys through the autumn? Because it always used to be in the past that just as we got to Gimmer lamb time, the prime lamb trade crashed.
Well, I sold Monday, Jack sold Tuesday, Paul sold yesterday. So we'll hear what Paul's latest version is, shall we?
I was born Wednesday morning, very anxious. I heard, not the best reports for Tuesday. and we averaged 316 pence, 314 overall, like 316 SQ, 314 overall. I was possibly quite happy with that, to be honest. And just the general consensus, really, weight is still favourable. And you know, if someone's the deep correlation, the difference between well-fed finished sheep and these grassier lambs, it's growing all the time, to be honest with you. And yeah, the handing you weight 40 to 43 would definitely be the hardest to place on the day, I would think. You're just in that 280 to 3 pence, 300 pence a kilo. But as I say, if you're getting onto meaty sheep, fed sheep, there could be easily £20 difference between a fed sheep at the same weight and a good fed sheep compared to a lamb off grass. But that's my opinion. Although I'm saying, yeah, it has been market colours. Um, yeah, still okay, but you don't want to see him come a lot less, I wouldn't have thought.
Thanks, Paul. Jack, any thoughts?
Yeah, we had a good big show actually. The past 2 weeks we've had some big shows. Like we said before, a lot of lambs coming earlier. We're the same as Paul. We're noticing a difference between the lambs that have been fed and the lambs that haven't. Sadly, I'd happily say it to all my farmers. The farmers in my area don't like getting the feed bag out at all, unless they're producing gimmer lambs. So we saw a lot of mule lambs in on Friday. I'm sorry, on Tuesday. The brothers to the sisters that we'll see next couple of weeks. Those lambs with flesh were selling to a good trade, but there's plenty of mule lambs that can bring your average down throughout the sale. But the grassy lambs that haven't seen grass or feed, they're actually probably better off in the store. Store lambs, you know, there've actually been some brave men out there who are giving a good price to store lambs at the moment for the future, and I think, you know, they're better off marketed on those days. Well-fed lambs are a good trade. We averaged just under £3 on Tuesday, which overall I was actually quite happy with for the number of lambs we had and for the quality of lambs we had. The past 2 weeks, last week we were 800 lambs up. This week we're 500 lambs up on the year. And the price slump has probably come a bit later than other years. Sometimes it always happens at this sort of time, but you know, we've often seen it a little bit earlier in the month. So farmers have actually probably had a better go through the month of August, I would think, anyways. And then they've got that price in their mind. So when the slump has come, they've got a few doom and gloom faces a little bit around, but sadly numbers have come out, and that's what we've seen, anyways.
Yeah, certainly during July and August, we've been in front of 2024 prices by quite a lump. And just this last week, the two years prices have sort of started to come together a little bit, you know. But really, what these lads say, the cake bag is the key to it at the moment. You get a lamb well fed, smart lamb well fed, you're £4 or more. But it's those really big lambs at 50 to 60 kilos at 185 to £220. Them's the ones that are ringing the bell. But as soon as anything's lost its back or looking a bit dry and a bit open coated, then it is much harder work to get them away. I would say in our region, what we're seeing is we're probably seeing a few more people who are pulling lambs into the Monday sale, into the prime sale, into the 38s or 40s and more, rather than selling them as stronger stores. They're trying to get them away. And it is affecting your averages. It's going to affect your averages. It hasn't massively affected the trade for the best fed ones, but certainly affecting your sale averages. And then it's affecting the price for those because they aren't what the processors really want at the moment. So
I think it's often the case. You don't, unless you've seen the stock, you can sit on a computer at night and look through the LAA and look through the prices. And think, oh, they haven't had a good trade, or they've had a really good trade. Unless you actually see what the stock's coming through. You know, like, people might think I had not a very good trade on Tuesday for what we had, but what we actually had was a good trade. Other weeks you might think, oh, we've had a really good trade, but we've had a lot of really good lambs. It all depends what you're selling on the day.
Yeah, 3 weeks ago, I would echo what Jack said. We had like a really, really poor show, just not a lot of meat about, and it was definitely harder work. But you guys have both said, Jack and Ted have both said that they felt there has been a front of numbers, but around here, numbers do seem to have been relatively slow, I feel, for us. Just a lot of men saying the lambs haven't just done enough, or they're not just coming good enough. And I feel locally there's more lambs to come out in the shortfall than what we've possibly seen.
might that be at times where some lads around here have said that the cows have lost the milk sooner? so the lambs stop doing, and it'll be the same across other areas too. The yows have just dried themselves off.
Whether that dry spell at the start of spring has just checked a lot of lambs, I think, in this area. And as you said, I think it's definitely paid anybody that's possibly spanned early, got them away under some bit of fog, or just, I think Spain have done them a lot of good actually this time. It often does. And the people that are spanned and now think they want to buy the feed, they are coming forward. But men just doing them off grass, I'm just saying it's been slower, a lot slower for them.
Okay, let's talk about tups. Obviously, the sales are properly getting into gear now, particularly for the lowland tups, the terminal sires. We see all sorts of prices recorded in the papers. What are your thoughts for this back end in terms of trade, and what are people going to be looking for? Anybody want to have a go?
Go on, carry on.
Yeah, the tups will probably follow the same pattern as they do most years, really. Your quality tups, your good tups, there'll be any amount of clientele for. And then your second-rate tups will probably prove harder to home. I would think we do for our main tups sale. We get a few Welsh buyers and things like that who do possibly buy more of a second-rate tup, and that might have a little bit of an effect because they can't travel up to buy. But I would say definitely the good tups will be good to sell, and power has been as good to sell as anything in the last few years. I feel for us anyway. Your big Texel tups, your big Suffolk tups have been good, and I would probably think the way it's set off, people I think it'll follow the same pattern really. There's been a couple of sales locally, and that has been the rule of thumb. It's just that the strength has been good, and people are pushing more to trying to get that weight at them.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Paul, in that people 5-10 years ago, maybe before, we're moving to Beltexes, pure Beltex. So it's like there seems to be a little bit of a move away from buying a pure Beltex to something that's bigger and stronger and can naturally flesh. And naturally fleshing sheep seems to be more in fashion at the moment.
Yeah, and I know I'm a biased man, but I think we've definitely seen a lot more people going back to the Suffolk in our area for quicking and finishing and a bit more weight to them. That's what we've seen definitely in our area. There's more people going back to the Suffolk than some of the white-face tups.
Probably. Go on, Jack. Sorry.
No, just we've got cows and ram sales coming up 2 weeks on Friday. A lot of English vendors going up there, having that extra cost onto them with the blue tongue testing and stuff. But yeah, no Kelso just around the corner, and then the week after we'll be down to Bilf Wells for their sales down there. And yeah, no, hopefully that. I must admit we haven't seen as 2 years ago. We saw a hell of a lot of cast tups coming through the ring, a massive number of cast tups every week. Friday, we couldn't believe the number of tups we were selling them. This is going to be a great thing. Everyone's going to become replacing them. This year, we haven't seen hardly anywhere near the number of tups as we saw the year before. So it's just interesting just to see if that will have any knock on any pattern, But we definitely 2 years ago we saw a hell of a lot of tups in the fat, and this year we haven't sold as many. So it'll just be interesting.
Probably to touch on what Ted and Jack have both said. Usually, the people won't mind us saying, but Suffolks and Texels, like Suffolk lambs would come in and they'd often be less than the Texels when you sell them, price wise in the fat market. But I feel like this year you've seen Texel lambs come off the weighbridge, might be an unpopular opinion, and you see Suffolk lambs, the pen of Suffolk lambs will follow them in. And Ted said there may be a lot easier fleshing sheep. The Suffolks have definitely come in, I feel, this year thicker and just probably a little bit more flesh about them off some of these yows rather as a Texel lamb, but possibly an unpopular opinion. But they've definitely been a lot closer on price, I feel, the Suffolks and the Texels than we've seen on other years.
Thanks, Paul. No, you say it as you feel it. Have we got any questions from anybody in the meeting at all on breeding sheep, ewes, tups, gimmer lambs? Any questions? Or let's have your comments. Let's see what you think. Everybody's been very quiet today, aren't they?
I'll make a comment, Adam, because it's my last ever meeting with the Farmer Network today, so why not go ahead? I mean, I know Ted and yourself personally very well. I'm I grew up as a farmer in Lancashire, Ted, I must admit.
Jeez.
There's no up with Lancashire than ours, because Lancashire and Yorkshire are actually very similar. And this year, when the weather comes from the Atlantic, this bit of Yorkshire that's keeping green is really part of northwest England, isn't it? Ribblesdale, where I live, is lovely and green. Standing in the field with a farmer this morning with another cut of silage on the way, plenty of grass, and you go down to Wharfdale and Nidderdale with no grass at all. It's that Pennine watershed is so important. But just in terms of, I've always enjoyed an auction. My local auction was Lancaster in the past. A few trips up to Bentham to buy breeding Massams, going back a long, long time. And I still go around with the tup sales because I think there's a brilliant buzz, and it's just that cultural heritage aspect which the Lake District and the Yorkshire Dales are very appreciative of in terms of national park authorities. It's so important locally, and I think the buzz of tourists coming to the area to Kirby Stephen and Hawes for the tup sales, it's fantastic and needs to be shouted from the rooftops. Our badge is a Swaledale tup. I'm still a member of the Dalesbred sheep breeders with my Massam heritage. I think those breed societies are fantastic, and I do think that this wider appreciation of upland farming, a lot of that can come out of the auction marts. I'll go to the fantastic local marts at Skipton, Bentham, Gisborne, Hawes, Kirby Stephen, Lancaster, Northwest Auctions, the breeding sales all the time. And I think the place of the auction mart is so important, not just from an economic perspective, but from a social perspective too. And inevitably, as Adam touched on, the environmental side of all my years being an agri-environment advisor since 1987, since I left farming, I think the environmental side inevitably has an impact on breeding sheep numbers, and as did the horrors of foot and mouth. But inevitably, like Adam says, less sheep around has led to higher prices. But I do think this, a better understanding of farming is something in a long career, which ends next week with the Yorkshire Dales National Park and Peak District National Park before that. It's this wider education role that people like Auctioneers and others who we're going to be talking can give to the wider public. So at the end of the day, they're all supporters, the public funding coming into the businesses, but just that wider appreciation of the public of that meat market and what livestock farmers achieve, not just food production, but all these wider public benefits they do, is a really important mechanism for the future in all respects.
Do you think, Adrian, that since the time you started, late 80s, where overgrazing of the hills was probably the thought, do you think that over the course of the last 23 years, or 24 years, since 2001, do you think it was swung so far now, in your opinion, that we are now undergrazing the hills?
In some areas, definitely yes. I mean, there's a picture of me on the wall just behind me, gathering Ingleborough, Mr. John Dawson, who many of you will know from not just from being a farmer in the Dales, but being on TV on the Lakes and Dales films. Through the Our Upland Commons programme that I've been a part of, gets me to gather Ingleborough every year. Parts of fells are getting undergrazed from an agricultural perspective, but there are still some areas that, from a pure nature recovery perspective, they're perhaps not achieving their objectives that Natural England and others set. And that's a difficult one, because for many, many years, the fells of the north of England have been heavily grazed, with subsidies encouraging farmers to do that. And it's like any change takes a long time in upland areas. Grass doesn't grow for so long or so quick. So therefore, anything that's been set back by one set of policy objectives takes a long time to recover. But yes, some areas, to answer your question factually, are now undergrazed, Ted, definitely. I saw areas after foot and mouth when I gave environmental advice on the back of farm business advice that was provided by government. Within 6 months of no sheep on these areas, Malham Lings, for example, the ling that gave it its name came back again. But we've got to get things in balance. That's the key. Now, I spoke at the Our Upland Commons final conference last year in October, and many people in the Lake District would, and I was in farms last week with my Ribblesdale Farm Group, which is my future link to farming, which I'll continue with after I've retired from the Yorkshire Dales. Many farms have had the sheep reduced by 2/3 in the Lake District, and some people in certain organisations would like to continue that reduction. And I think it's a really difficult one, because we go beyond the point of balance. When I was a farmer in the 70s and 80s, we did perhaps go too far. I was a lowland farmer. We perhaps used too many sprays, took too many hedges out, did too much drainage, and we went too far the other way. But now we're going too far with policy objectives from DEFRA. I think too far the other way, because with 55 million people in England, not the UK, which it was the population, we do have to feed people as well. But equally, we are a global food production, as Ted said before. We have to take consideration of the global forces, not just what happens in England.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And with what I have learned, this organisation, the Farmer Network, sits on about 16 different partnerships and stakeholder groups. And we're so often in there trying to talk with environmental organisations, conservationists, ecologists. And the one thing that is never discussed is the wider effects of the environmental policies. We know what environmental objectives need to be achieved, but nobody talks about the fact that we've got far less hill sheep on the hills, far less hefted flocks, and therefore when they become draft ewes, we've got far less breeding sheep like mule gimmer lambs, and nobody talks about this. And I can promise you that as a Farmer Network, we do talk about that, and we will try every way we can to keep that in the conversation, to make sure that everything is discussed and talked about in terms of policies in the future, and not just focused on nature. So yes, Adrian.
Well, I'd just like to congratulate you on your award last week at Cumbria Farming Awards, the Farmer Network. I think that was a fantastic recognition of the work you've done. I helped set the Farmer Network up in the Yorkshire Dales with your predecessor Paul Harper in the late noughties, and Will Rowling had a key role in that. I think the Farmer Network is a fantastic organisation. It's great to see it spreading further afield with Lancashire, Northumberland and North York Moors. I think it's doing a great job, and you're at many of the same meetings that I have and that I go to, and we have to continue with this message. And Robin Milton, who I work with alongside Will Cockburn in the national, because I've been the National Agricultural Lead for all the national parks in England for nearly 10 years now, said to me when I was retiring, "You'll never escape the world of hill farming policies and advice, Adrian, because once you're in it, you can never get away." And he was right. But it's been a fascinating time to be involved, but there's still a lot of work to do, Adam, and you're doing a great job. So, yeah, congratulations to the network on that award, but also more widely all the work you've done. It's fantastic to be a little part of setting it up in the Yorkshire Dales.
Very kind of you to say so. On behalf of the network, Adrian, we thank you for the support you have given us, making that Yorkshire Dales network happen back in 2010. The consistent support you've given us, and we wish you a happy, we know you're not fully retiring, but a happy retirement from the park anyway. And genuinely on behalf of the team, we hope that we keep in touch with you and we keep seeing you and talking to you. So thank you for that. Okay, let's very quickly talk about cattle. I know Ted's got to go slightly early today because he's got another meeting at 1, and I really appreciate that, Ted, that you've given us your time. Let's have a quick talk about store cattle and breeding cattle sales now before the end of the meeting. We've got about 15 minutes. What are our thoughts? The store cattle trade, looking on the outside of the ring as I do these days, looks pretty fantastic. What are your thoughts for this autumn?
Well, I'd probably like to start by saying, like, we've probably been quite negative over the last few hours about the grass and blue tongue and things like that. But I think we've seen, as we just mentioned about reducing stock numbers, there's a lot of opportunity out there, I think, arising, and we can see that coming forward for farming. Trades this last 6 months has been fairly unprecedented for all stock, and as we're going to move into cattle, I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of exciting prospects for the new prices. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think it looks quite good for the future, if I'm honest. Cattle wise, obviously there was a massive spike in the fat price, and I don't know how everyone else feels in this chat, but I would say store cattle in relation to what the fat cattle's come back. It doesn't feel like it's come back anything like as much as that, really. It's been very, very good. We had a big sale on Monday, and you could see it. The fat price has come back sort of 10 pence over the last 2 weeks. But with regards to store cattle price, you couldn't see much difference in the trade at all. And your big forward cattle still coming easy 2.3 to 2.6, no problem at all. And it's still absolutely marvelous. We could be, yeah, a lot of people were selling annually on our sale on Monday, and they would sell last year, and they could be I think a lot of them be £500 upon the year.
The demographic of the type of cattle that we're selling now is changing. You know, when I came here 18 years ago, we were stronger stars or a lot of suckle calves. The suckle calves have the suckled calf producers have reduced in number across the Yorkshire Dales and this area here. Number of suckler cows across Lancashire and here halved or more. So the demographic of type of cat we're having to sell are now more reared dairy calves, sturks, yearlings, trying to get them into the hands of people who want to grow them. So there's almost a stratified beef industry there where we're getting a calf and people are buying the calf and making it into a stirk, and then a different man's going to buy the stirk and make them into a strong star, and then the serious feeder finishers just want the strong stars, 80-90 day cattle, and away again. So there's a whole thing there that British agriculture is tapping into. It's the calf schemes as well, though, that farmers need to battle against to make sure they can still get those. So you have the ability to sell when you want, where you want, and how you want. For the reason being that if you're stuck into a calf scheme, you are stuck into their rules and regulations. If you are rearing your own calves and rearing your own stakes and selling them as strong stars, next door neighbour's field comes up for sale, you want to sell something to buy it, you can go and do it. Tractor blows up, you need to sell something to pay for the tractor, you can go and do it. And that's my encouragement to people is, if you haven't got suckler cows, maybe think about Skipton on a Saturday, Penrith on a Friday, Jack's on a Friday as well. There's plenty of stuff to go and buy to grow into stronger stores and turn some out of. And that is where the beef industry seems to be going at the moment.
Jack, just before you come in, and I'm very conscious, Ted, that you've got to go in about 2 minutes' time. I've had a question which is been sent to me on the chat, which kind of ties into what you've just said, Ted. So the question is, have the auctioneers seen any changes in the farming family setup, particularly since the announcements relating to inheritance tax? Are the younger generations becoming more involved in buying and selling at the mart and being present at the mart? So I'd just like your thoughts on that. Ted, can you start knowing that you're going to be away?
I wouldn't say it's been an immediate thing. I would say that certainly what you just brought up there about however you want to call it, inheritance tax, family farm tax, whatever you want to call it, that is a major worry to farming families, landowners, even on the value of what you're farming for larger tenancies as well, how they hand it over. So, but we are certainly seeing more involvement with the younger generation who are looking at these different ways to rear beef cattle and how they can mix sheep and beef on the farms and how they can make it work financially for them. Now, some of them might have come down the age scale because it's the finances involved with buying the cattle, and they're gonna have their bit as they're growing them. Some of the farming families are going more down the route of finishing cattle rather than trying to graze cattle and finish them. You know, say more of our finishers in the east are coming and buying shorter term cattle than they were before, and where they were grazing them, it seems to be more housing for those lads. So we are seeing a change. I don't think there's been an immediate reaction just yet to changing the makeup of farms, the makeup of the business, but it's going to come this next 12 months.
That's interesting, Ted.
I'm just going to sign off because I've got to go to my next meeting. But
we really appreciate your time. Thank you, Ted.
I'll leave you with Jack and Paul, two great lads doing a fantastic job in the north of England. I will just finish on one thing: support your markets if you can. We're here for you all. We're here for you every day at week, and please support us if you can.
All the best, Ted.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, we'll come back to you, Paul, and then Jack will have your thoughts on the cattle trade for the back end, and also the question there just about, are we seeing a change in more young people being involved? Yes, Paul.
Yeah, I would say for noticeably myself in the auction market, you see a lot of families, a lot of children coming in from a young age up to 15, 16, 17. I think you see a lot of young families, young children getting involved, coming. You think this is really hopeful and looks like we've got some great people coming through. We had a young handlers the other day, a great entry. And then we just seem to, all of a sudden, we get to like 20, 21, 2, and they just seem to disappear. And you might, there's a few stock, by the way, like stock with you, but it's an aging job. It's an aging, an aging job, isn't it? Farming, there's a lot of elder people in it, and feel like we just seem to have loads of young ones keen, and then they don't get the opportunities that they need, and they just go by the wayside when they get into the 20s and get jobs elsewhere. And also, you mentioned about the price of stock and how things are changing, but we need to encourage the younger people, younger generation on these family farms to come on and do it, because anyone who hasn't got the backing of a family or a farm or something to pass through, it's going to be really hard because the way stock price has gone, it's colossal. We were talking the other day, and just on a side note, there was a farm, a biggish farm, come up to rent, and farm rate on a lease, and we said if you need 1,000 sheep and 100 cows to stock it, which wouldn't have stocked the farm, you need £500,000 to buy your stock. And so that's your 1,000 sheep at £200 a piece, and at 100 cows at £3,000, whether you're buying a cow and calf, whatever you're buying, and probably not in the best league for everything there. You need £500,000 just to start without any machinery. It's colossal figures now. It's almost impossible to get into it. So that's how I feel going forward. It's going to be a challenge. We need to look after the young generation to come through.
Absolutely agree, Paul. Thank you for that. So I'm going to come back to you, Jack, now in a second. And then if anybody's got any questions, that should just take us about to time, or any comments on what our auctioneers have been saying. But Jack, your thoughts firstly on the cattle trade for the autumn?
Yeah, so sadly, I don't get to go in the cattle ring very often. I sit in the box at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Friday and sell sheep, and normally by the time I'm finished, sadly, the cattle are finished. However, I did go through the beginning of August when we had our anniversary show and sale, and to be honest, I was gobsmacked really at the trade, really, because the way the fat job has been reducing its way down a little bit since March, since we saw the heights in March, the fat has been coming less, and these store cattle are still a marvelous trade, really. A lot of these, we are lucky in our area. We've got a lot of very good wild bred cattle. Some of the second and third rate cattle. To me, there isn't a massive difference in the price of what they're making at the moment. I think they're a fantastic trade all the way through, and hopefully, as Ted was talking before about the less numbers of cattle actually worldwide. Hopefully that's going to help our trade. Yes, we have all this new American deal and all these different things that they keep talking about. But a lot of these countries actually can't sustain their own food in their own country. So we need to make sure that we can sustain our food in our own country, and hopefully the number of cattle are about. I'm shocked at the number of cows, sadly, we've sold since I've been here. I've been here 6 years now, and the number of cows and calves that we've dispersed in our area is very, very sad. And I don't think these cattle would have actually dispersed if the cow price and the store cattle price had actually risen in relation to how quickly it rose this year. If it had risen every year, I don't think we'd have seen the loss of number of these cows, because farmers probably were going to make some bit of money out of them. Whereas they weren't making any money, they thought, bugger it, let's sell them straight away, and got rid of them. If the fat price had risen steadily along the way over the last few years, the cows maybe wouldn't have disappeared. But yeah, no, it's exciting. Hopefully this cattle trade can stay the same, and if not, get a bit dearer as well when we get through to some of those better sales into the autumn. And I just want to reiterate what Paul said, about the youngsters. It's great that we get all these youngsters coming to the mart, and it really is. And you look back to 20, 30 years ago when we used to run, like Bellingham Mart. Sadly, we don't run anymore. But you didn't actually have to employ many staff. Everyone came along to the mart, all these youngsters, and everyone enjoyed pushing sheep up all day. They got their pies and peas at lunchtime, and they enjoyed it. And sadly, they're not there anymore, because actually the farm only employs one person. Go back to my grandpa's generation, there was 5 or 6 men working on the farm. There's one person working on the farm now, because of the way everything's modernized and cost of employment and stuff. So actually farmers haven't got the time sometimes to go and stand at the market. But what Adrian said before about the social impact of markets, they're massive. You go into our cafe at 12, 1 o'clock on a Friday, you can't get a seat. It's buzzing with people, and that's what's really important. It's not sometimes, we might be getting a bad trade, but to be able to come and actually sit, talk to your friends, talk to people might not see anyone in the week, to be able to come to a market and do that's one of the most important aspects, I think. And actually another thing we've noticed is the last 3 weeks of the summer holidays, we've seen a lot of people coming to watch sales. And we've actually seen last Tuesday we saw 80 Jews from the Jewish community came to our market to watch, because they wanted to show their children how stock is traded and where their food comes from. None of them knew each other. They were all from London. They were staying in Gateshead. None of them knew each other, all these families, and they came along just to show off to their children all about the where their food comes from. And I think that's a real important thing, that we can offer that, to be able to show people that. And this is what that real divide is at the moment between school children and where they don't know where their food comes from. I think it's really important. We invite every year school kids to come. We do about 10 to 12 different visits a year. with different schools to come to the mart and see how the mart runs, so they can actually understand where their food comes from. And I think that's really important, that we must continue as farmers educating. Because it doesn't matter if you're a vegetarian, a vegan, or a meat eater, everybody needs a farmer. And that's the most important thing. People always need to remember that everyone still needs a farmer, and that must try and get that divide narrowed.
Yeah, absolutely right, Jack. And that's something that everybody within the industry can do to spread that positive message about the benefits that farming brings to this country. We did a fell gather event at Grasmere Sports, which is a massive public event in the middle of the Lake District, which is, as it says, is sport. It's not an agricultural show. But we took some sheep there and we talked to them about why there are sheep on the hills, and we did a few demonstrations for them. And when you talk to them sensibly about farming, our public absolutely gets it, and they are supportive. There's just so little knowledge out there. So as an industry, I think that's something we must do. And also those young people coming into the markets. My time as an auctioneer, I always tried to make time to speak or acknowledge the young people, just to make them feel welcome, because 10 years, 15 years down the line, those young people become clients in their own right, and they never forget. They always remember if an auctioneer had a chat to them. And I think it's not just auctioneers, but it's farmers as well. Take time to speak to the young people and encourage them. And I know many of you guys do that. So I think that's important. So with 2 minutes left, just a chance for anybody to ask any final questions. We've got Paul and Jack left. Any questions or comments that you want to make? Everybody's so quiet. That worries me. Does anybody... have you enjoyed this today? Yeah, Richard.
Do the auctioneers feel that the reduction in BPS and that sort of thing, and we don't, so that we hope everybody realises there's going to be a BPS drop, but as the network, we've discussed this a few times, we're not sure everybody does know, if they're going to come to the breeding sheep sales, breed cattle sales, with suddenly less in the bank account than what they think they've got, is that going to, do they think that will impact on prices or not? We have discussed it, haven't we, Adam, before this, and we just wonder if that's going to impact or not.
I think we'll see. I think we'll see an increased number of farmers asking for credit, wanting to know if they can pay at a later date. I've definitely noticed in the last few years, farmers are taking longer to pay than they used to be, or wanting more chance of taking longer to pay. Not necessarily getting that chance, but we've definitely noticed more farmers are in need of a little bit more time, which is worrying. But you've got to work out for your business. But I think we will see more farmers looking for credit if possible, if we can sell lambs back or whatever. But that's up to every business to work out. But
yeah, I would probably echo what Jack said. We've had a few people already asking for that, but as everyone knows, the runners in value, it's all big money we're talking now handling. But I think with regards to your question, people still need to come out and buy the replacements, buy the stock. And single farm payments are massive miss, and it isn't going to obviously help. But without having stock on the farm or stock on the market, like to sell, they've got nothing and they can't pay any of these bills. So they'll have to come out and buy breeding stock of some standard to keep paying the bills and keep farming and keep going. So they maybe can't buy, they maybe have to drop down a pen or not maybe buy as good a quality as they want, but I still think they'll have to buy the numbers to keep going.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thanks very much. We're bang on 1 o'clock. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed our members hour. Grateful thanks to Ted and to Jack and for Paul for giving us their time and giving us their thoughts as well. So I hope this session's been enjoyable and of use to you. I'll leave you with one little anecdote that goes back to when I was an 18-year-old just leaving school before college, and I went to work at Mitchell's Auction Company at Cockermouth as an 18-year-old, which is what really started my love of the auction marts and desire to be an auctioneer. And after one big back-end cattle sale where we sold 1,000 cattle in the autumn, my job as the junior, apart from making the tea, was to take the cash to the bank. And in those days, bearing in mind this is the early 1980s, probably 90%, 80 to 90% of the stock that was sold that day would be paid for on the day. How times change. And then off I toddled down Station Street in Cockermouth, turn right onto Main Street and walk about 300 yards up to the Midland Bank with a big green cash bag with a cash sign on it and probably about £30,000 in cash on those days, and toddled off down the street, perfectly happy to do so. Never thought two thoughts about it. So how times change in terms of how long it takes to pay for stock, and two, nobody pays cash anymore, and three, you certainly don't go down to the bank with 30 grand worth of cash in a green bag marked cash. So maybe times change for the better. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope you've enjoyed the session with us. Again, grateful thanks to Paul and Jack and to Ted. And we'll have another members session in exactly 1 month's time, last Thursday in September. If you've got any topics you want to cover across the farming sector, please let us know. So for now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll say thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and best of luck, you guys, for the back end. Hope it's a good one for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.